The next morning, Uncle Joe was already out in the rock shop when Jessie and Daisy brought Emmy downstairs to the kitchen. Daisy gave Emmy some lettuce leaves for breakfast. The dragon was still hungry, so Jessie fed her a whole tub of cottage cheese, then a chunk of Swiss cheese, strawberry yogurt, a pint of coleslaw, and 5 small balls of mozzarella. She's like the very hungry caterpillar, Daisy declared. Said Jessie thoughtfully, staring at Emmy's belly, which was bulging now. Daisy lifted her up and tucked her into the hood of Jessie's sweatshirt. She feels heavier today. Does she feel heavier to you? Daisy asked. Well, of course she does. She just ate practically half the refrigerator, said Jessie, adjusting his hood. Poppy won't notice the missing food, but Mom sure will when she gets back, said Daisy. I guess we'll just have to tell her we're training for something. We're training to be dragon keepers, Jessie said with a short laugh. Daisy put copies of the signs in the big brown envelope and fastened it to the back of her bike with a bungee cord. Then they got on their bikes and rode into town. They stopped at every shop along Main Street and asked each shopkeeper if it was okay to put up a sign. Most of the shopkeepers were happy to let Jessie and Daisy post their signs, but when the owner of the dry cleaner said he did not allow signs, that was okay with the cousins. If nobody in Gold Mine City ever saw the sign, that would be just fine with Jessie and Daisy. After all, Emmy had chosen them. They were the dragon keepers. When they had placed the very last sign in the window of the coffee shop, Emmy had been watching in silence from the hood, scrambled up to Jessie's shoulder, lifted her head, and yodeled. Food! Shh, said Daisy. You just ate. Emmy, eat more, she said. Soon, said Jessie. Not soon, said Emmy. Feed Emmy, now! The cousins raced back home to boil some eggs. Let's boil the whole carton, said Daisy. We can make deviled eggs for snacks, and that way we won't waste any. As soon as the hard-boiled eggs were cool enough, they peeled them and put the shells in the bowl, and took Emmy out to the backyard. They watched her as she sat in an old sandbox and crunched her way through the eggshells. After a while, Jessie said, I think we need to measure her. What do you mean? Asked Daisy. But I'm almost afraid to. She got up, went to the house, came back with the tape measure. She measured Emmy twice to make sure. Emmy was now 8 inches long. That's twice as big as yesterday, to be exact, said Daisy. Great, Jessie said gloomily. What if she doubles every day? She's not going to fit in the sock drawer much longer, that's for sure, Jessie thought. Daisy opened up her notebook and started writing on the back page. Jessie went to sit beside her so he could see what she was up to. Day 1, 4 inches. 2, 8 inches. Day 3, 16. Day 4, 32 inches. Daisy stopped writing and tossed her pencil over her shoulder. Sheesh, she said. How big do you think she's going to be when Aunt Maggie gets back? Jessie asked worriedly. Daisy dropped her head in her hands. Jessie went on. You know how she had that meltdown yesterday in the barn? That was a 4-inch tantrum. Jessie didn't need to continue because Daisy was nodding. They were both thinking, what would a 64-inch meltdown look like? How are we going to afford food when she gets that big? She's eating a lot now. How much is she going to need when she gets bigger? And where are we going to put her? And how are we going to keep her hidden? Jessie was working himself into a real sweat. Daisy lifted her head and said with a very weary smile, Take it easy, Dragon Keeper. First Kilimanjaro, then Everest, right? Let's check in with the professor. Maybe he can help. Daisy was gathering up Emmy when the phone in the kitchen rang. Uncle Joe banged open the door of the rock shop, ran across the yard, up the back steps, and into the house. He caught the phone on the 8th ring and the cousins crossed their fingers. After a while, Uncle Joe kicked open the back door. He was still talking on the phone. From where the cousins were sitting, he didn't look happy. Uncle Joe crooked a finger at them. Emmy let Jesse pop her into his pouch of his sweatshirt. As the cousins went up the steps to the back door, Jesse felt the new weight of Emmy's swinging. "No yakking," he whispered in the sweatshirt. "Emmy not yak," Emmy whispered back. Uncle Joe put the phone to his chest and said to them in a low voice, "Looks like those signs of yours did the trick. The lizard's owner I'm talking to, he's coming over to get her." When Uncle Joe saw the look on their faces, he held up his hand. "Easy now. You recall I said a lizard that rare looking must belong to someone. And this isn't just anybody. He just joined the zoology department at the College of Mining and Science. He's a well-regarded herpetologist." Well-regarded? A well-regarded what? Thought Daisy. Jesse could tell that she was fighting tears. "Herpetologist," said Uncle Joe, "a scientist that studies lizards and snakes and reptiles. I'm afraid I'll have to let him come on over and get his lost lizard. I'm really sorry, guys, but that's the way the limestone crumbles." Uncle Joe shrugged sadly and went back into the kitchen to give the herpetologist directions. The cousins stared at each other in shock. Slowly they turned around and walked to the sandbox. Emmy had heard it all. When Jesse removed her from his pouch and set her down in the sand, she spat out fine spray of eggshell. "Emmy not go," she growled. "We're sorry, Emmy," said Jesse, kneeling before her. The voice was tight. "We don't have much of a choice." "Emmy sad." She kneeled over into the sand. They took her to Jesse's room, where she curled into a tight little ball of scales. Jesse placed her gently in the sock drawer and stared at her glumly. Daisy came in to stand beside her, blinking away tears. She almost never cried, but this was a losing battle. "We need to get in touch with the Professor Anderson. Now," she said. "No," said Jesse, thinking of the blazing eyes of their online advisor. "He's going to be so mad at us." "But don't we have to tell him?" Daisy asked. "No, yes, maybe, I don't know," Jesse said. "Some dragon keepers we turned out to be," Daisy said. Jesse nodded, staring at Emmy, who was once more as silent as a thunder egg. "We've only had her, what? Not even 2 days? It feels like my whole life. And now we're losing her?" Not long afterward, the doorbell rang, filling the house with a medley. Uncle Joe had programmed it to play Rock of Ages. "What if we just say no? What if we tell him tough luck, he can't have any?" Jesse said in a panic. "I don't think Poppy would let us do that," Daisy said, wiping her nose in her sleeve. "This guy might be a giant fibber, but so are we, and we fib first." "What if we hide her and say she ran away?" said Jesse. Daisy said, "Hasn't fibbing gotten us into enough trouble already?" "Guys," Uncle Joe called from downstairs, "can you bring the lizard down?" Daisy heaved a huge sigh. "Let's get this over with." Nodding, Jesse reached into the sock drawer and took Emmy into his hands. She felt lifeless. She didn't even need the purple knee sock, but Daisy stuffed it into her pocket anyway. They clomped down the stairs side by side, preparing themselves to hand over their baby dragon to a complete stranger. But Jesse froze when he saw who was standing in the hall next to the front door by Uncle Joe. It was the man in the long black coat from High Peak. Uncle Joe had a polite smile plastered across his face. He said, "Guys, meet the man who has lost his lizard. This is Dr. St. George." And that's the end of Chapter 6. Chapter 7 is called Finders Cheaters.